Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jerred Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jerred Moon here with Joe Courtney. What's up, Joe?
What it do?
And we have Keith Fields. How's it going, Keith?
Doing great.
Glad to have you here, man. So I'm just going to throw it right to you. What do you do for a living? How do you train? All that good stuff.
Yeah, sure. So I'm 39 years old, husband for the last 18 years. I've got two kids, 11 and 9. Actually, I take it back, not 11. She'll shoot me if she finds out that I told her that her age is younger. She's actually 12 going on 13. And as far as what I do for a living, I am a solutions architect for a cybersecurity company that's based out of California. But my assigned territory is what we refer to as the Ohio Valley region. So I cover all of Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Northern Kentucky, and Western Pennsylvania. And we sell cybersecurity products and services to large corporations.
Very cool. And do you work from home or you go into the office?
So I have worked from home now for the last 3 years. So this whole stay-at-home order hasn't really affected me any. I spend most of my day doing Webexes and conference calls with customers as well as internal meetings. So it's just another day for me at the office, which just happens to be 5 steps away from my home gym.
That's awesome, man. And what is your home gym? What's the setup like?
So setup is, so it's not in the garage like everybody else. I am in the basement, mostly because I wanted a space that was close to my office so that way during the day I could sneak away during, maybe a call or something like that. If I'm just listening on Webex, I could sneak in and do some accessory work, maybe get on the treadmill and do some walking or something. But it's a part of the finished basement. And I've got let's see here. I've got a ProForm treadmill that I picked up off of Facebook for like $60. Selection of dumbbells ranging from 5 to 30 in here. That most of those I picked up at a yard sale. I think I got that for like $40. Added this year a Concept 2 rower. It's an older one. It's actually the PM2 system, but you know what? It tracks distance and does what it needs to do.
Yeah.
And then I've got a squat rack. It's actually like a cap squat rack with the pull-up bar at the top and the safety arms on it. Handful of iron plates. Actually, it's a complete 300-pound set from Dick's Sporting Goods. So I got the matching barbell, which is only used for when I absolutely need to. Other than that, I use a Rogue B&R bar that I've got in here as well. And then an adjustable weight bench, rings, resistance bands, and a DIY plyo box. Compliments of your DIY section.
That's awesome. You sound like you got a pretty good setup, man.
It's working. Just like anything else, it's evolved over the years. Started off with just a treadmill and a Bowflex station, and added on. I picked up a weight bench that was sitting on the side of the road that one of our neighbors was getting rid of just because he didn't want to move it. So I took it off of his hands and I turned around and sold it about maybe 6 months later and used that to buy more equipment. So it's just an ever evolving process.
That's awesome. Now I want to go back to something you said, because I was just thinking about it. You mentioned, you being able to like sneak off during Webex or whatever.
Yeah, I was going to think of that too.
and hit some exercise. Have you ever been caught and they're like, Keith, what do you think? And you have to like unmute yourself and like you're out of breath and you're like, actually, has that ever happened?
No, that has not happened. I traditionally reserve that sort of thing for like the Webexes where I'm listening in and all the participants are muted from the very beginning. So, I'll come in and do like, a light jog on the treadmill. But for the most part, I do all my workouts first thing in the morning. It has to be done that way because, as part of the sales team, we just never know when we're going to get a phone call from a customer to talk about either an issue that they're experiencing with one of our products or something, or, maybe a competitor's product and want to replace it. So we just never know. And because my territory is so large, I get phone calls from our sales reps continuously throughout the day. So trying to sneak off to a big box gym at lunchtime doesn't work out. And I'd rather spend my evenings with the family than, trying to drive to the gym and do everything else there. So it's just nice to be able to get up in the morning. I'm down here like 5:30 in the morning and get my workout in.
Dang.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And was that a big reason behind starting the garage gym? I like to ask that question, but maybe that was it, is like just a matter of your work schedule and what you're trying to do. Is that why you started a garage gym?
I'll be honest with you, there are several different factors behind it. One was obviously the work schedule. At the time when I switched over to this job and went away from working in a traditional office that had a fitness center on site, I went out and I got a membership at a regular, large gym here in town, mostly to go and take classes with my wife, because my wife loves to do the group fitness classes. And I was like, I'll go and I'll do them with you. I quickly learned that a lot of those classes are more dancey, if that's a term. Or at least it seemed like it was. And it's just something about having an instructor up there like a cheerleader than as a coach. So I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I think actually my wife may have politely asked me to never go back with her again. I think I have that resting jerk face sort of thing going on. But it was that, and they just didn't have anything that I liked. A previous gym that we belonged to, we did a HIIT style boot camp Tuesdays and Thursday nights, and then on Saturdays. And we really liked that. But then that gym got sold to somebody else, and it basically turned into a powerlifting gym, which didn't meet our needs. And so I was like, I'm done. I'm going to build my own home gym. And I was already doing so much here at the house that March of last year, I realized I had paid for 3 months of membership fees and never went to the gym once. So I was like, that's it. I'm done. I need to find something else. I dabbled a little bit in trying to do my own programming, bits and pieces from CrossFit.com. Got a lot of friends that belong to several of the CrossFit gyms here in town. And so they were kind of sharing some stuff, and it just got to be too cumbersome to try and piece it all together. And then I was like, I've been listening to started off listening to the Better Humanology podcast, years ago. And I was like, I'm going to give Garage Gym a shot, and I'm going to do the Garage Gym athlete tracks. So that was the catalyst behind it. And I think I've been part of the group now for almost a year, maybe over a year.
Yeah, I know you've been around for a while, man. I think it's awesome. I think you've followed a very similar journey to, I think, a lot of people. And I think what's cool too is like, it wasn't necessarily like, straight financial reasons. You're talking about like a gym membership and not paying for it versus, Garage Gym Athlete is something everyone pays for, but it's not, a lot of people don't view it as like a gym membership. It's programming, right? And I think that's
Right.
a huge difference. I think that it's hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. And that's something I try to communicate with a lot of people. We get a lot of prospective athletes who are looking at it, and they think that we just have like one program that we like, they just goes on repeat, and they don't get why we charge a monthly fee or whatever. And I think once you're part of it, as long as you've been, you get like, oh yeah, we are constantly adjusting things and tweaking things and making sure our athletes are getting better. And I think that's a big part of a good fitness journey, as opposed to having the aerobic instructor at the front, or just trying to do your own thing at Golds or whatever.
Right. Yeah, and I figured that I could do a lot of this stuff on my own, but it's just, to me, I like to take out all the extra factors into it of trying to figure out my own programming. I just had this conversation today with a close colleague of mine at work who he's trying to decide whether or not to keep his personal trainer or do it his own. And I'm like, you've got to check out our program. This is awesome. It helps me out. I come down to the gym every Sunday. I write out the workouts for the week on the whiteboard. And so when I get up in the morning, I come down, put away the phone, and I just look at the board. I know exactly what I'm doing for the day.
That's awesome. I think that is the best way to tackle it. I think Ashley does something very similar with writing them all out ahead of time. I write them all out the day of, but I think the more prepared you can be, the better. And the reason I wanted to hit on that is because I don't think people factor that into account as much. Like what you're talking about is a very small thing, and people be like, well, I have the app, I don't need to write it down. But there's something about that mental preparation that you're doing on Sunday, I think is huge, and probably has helped you a ton, knowingly or unknowingly, with consistency over a longer period of time, because you have this like ritual and routine, and your brain knows like, hey, okay, this is what we're doing this week. I think that's a really awesome habit that you've developed there.
Also keeps you from looking at your phone as much.
Yeah. It does. It keeps me from, picking up the phone and seeing the Facebook notifications and getting sucked into that, or, a work email or something like that. I can just put it over to the side, do what I need to do. And the whiteboard is strategically placed in front of the squat rack. So when I'm in the squat rack and I'm doing, my squats or whatever, I'm looking at it and I know exactly what I'm doing next. And I know exactly what weight I'm going to put on it. So it's not like having to go back and say, okay, well, what % am I at today? What do I need to change?
And what are your goals right now?
Well, I was kind of dreading this question. My goals have shifted a little bit. And I say that hesitantly because I found out, so I just went on vacation last week. And right before that, I found out that I have to have shoulder surgery. So I am going to be out of pocket for probably about 10 to 12 weeks total, with being able to work out. So my goals are changing a little bit. Whereas I was, this upcoming cycle, I was looking at switching over to Endure. I've done, I think 3 or 4 cycles of Hard to Kill. The current cycle I'm on is Shred. And I switched to Shred because I was having some shoulder impingement issues that I felt like I needed to get away from doing overhead presses or any sort of overhead movements. And I felt the Shred would be the best case for it. And then right when everything went on lockdown in March, the problem kind of got exasperated and finally got in. They did the MRI and I found out I have a full thickness tear that has to be repaired. So
Ouch.
The goals are changing. So I'm looking at it from the standpoint of, while I realize I'm not going to be able to get stronger during that time frame outside of doing the physical therapy and everything else, I'm going to focus in more on my nutrition and try and get that dialed in, as well as maybe some other areas that just need to be focused in on. I'm going to try to get on the treadmill and at least walk at like a high incline to keep my endurance and everything up and just to stay active. But yeah, the goals are definitely switching.
Well, at least you have some, man, for the situation or road you're headed down. Like, I think some people might be like, oh, yeah, we'll take some time off. Sounds like you have a pretty good plan mapped out for walking into this.
Yeah, it's one of those things I can't sit here and be sedentary. When I first started working from home, I made it a point that I wasn't going to sit at my desk every single day. So I bought a sit-stand desk, and I try to stand throughout the course of the day. And for me just to sit around and just binge watch Netflix, that's not going to happen. That might be the 13 years I spent in the Marine Corps, but that's coming out. But I just can't sit still.
No, that's a good problem to have.
Yes.
And what were you doing before you were a garage gym athlete?
It was a lot of different things. So, like I said, trying to kind of piecemeal my own programming together, CrossFit stuff. I've got several friends, that are in CrossFit. They're like, oh, you got to come do CrossFit. It just, while there's a community there at most of them, I couldn't get my head wrapped around, the cost behind it and everything else. And again, it's just all the different things of getting away from it. So a lot of my stuff was a lot of running. You would think that after 13 years in the Marines that I would not want to run. And seeing as I blew out my ACL while I was on active duty running. But I started getting into running, started doing some obstacle course races. My wife and I went and did, we did 4 warrior dashes together here in Ohio. We were going to go and do one last year, and then all of a sudden warrior dash disappeared. So that kind of changed. I've done done a half marathon, handful of 10Ks. Just, a little bit of everything, but, I really like to stay grounded, when it comes down to overall exercise as much as I can.
Yeah. And I think that's the most fun, is like having these events to train for, but also being ready for them. That well-roundedness you're talking about, I think, is something I know I really like. That's my goal most of the time, is like, let's just be ready for as much as you could possibly throw at me.
Yeah,
exactly. I don't want to
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just don't want to be one of those parents that, I can't go out and do anything with my kids. I've heard it on several of the previous athletes that have been on, say that, they don't want to be able to tell their kids no, that they can't do a certain activity because of whatever reason. And I'm the same way. I don't want to tell my kids no. It was really tough to tell them no when we were on vacation, when they wanted me to go out in the ocean, but the possibility of having to jerk my shoulder backwards and being in pain for the rest of the day just was going to take me out of the moment anyhow. Yeah.
And how do you like training in your garage? I'm going to kind of like 2-part this one, and like, how do you like training in your garage? And also kind of what's the big struggle, if any? Basement. Yeah. Sorry. The basement dwellers. And we just call it garage as like it's a honorary garage.
Umbrella term.
Yeah.
Well, I would have it in the garage, but I've got way too many Christmas lights out there taking up the majority
Christmas
of it.
lights?
That's a whole
Nice.
other conversation for another time.
We can talk about that now.
Yeah,
I love Christmas.
Well, so I run a computerized Christmas light show every year, and we collect toys for the local fire department to help out the community. So I start setting everything up in November, and it runs from Thanksgiving until New Year's Day. And,
all right. I want a video in the group.
Yeah, right. We need this now. I'm all about Christmas.
Okay. I will definitely put that out there. It's the last count I had was over 10,000 lights.
Wow.
And the last 2 years, we've had 2 houses synchronized to music.
Ooh, that's fun.
That's awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I'm putting it on my calendar.
So yes, I will definitely share that. But to answer your question, how do I like working out in my garage / basement? I love it. I love the fact that I can come down here and already know what I'm going to do for the day. And I can just come down and just zone out, right? Do my workout, get it done, and get on with the day. And for me, it's really beneficial because I can do all of that first thing in the morning and still get ready for work and see the kids off school since, I do work from home, and I'm here when they get home. The other nice thing about it is, especially with everything around COVID, the gym here at the house was not just mine. It turned into a family, gym. So, my son's coming down, he's getting on the rowing machine and just having a blast with that. My wife is down here, she's streaming, workouts on her phone and doing that. And then my daughter, who is doing all of her conditioning right now for volleyball, is down here, she's running on the treadmill. So I've been able to see how just having this facility here at the house has made me a better person, but it's also helping my family to be, to help them improve.
I think that's awesome. You said you were listening to the Better Humanology podcast, and I feel like that's the attempt of a lot of what we're doing, going back from, it's all just exercise, right? Like if you're kind of an outsider to the community, it's just like, yeah, it's some workouts, but you just put it so well, like what it could really do for your life, how many different areas it affects. And I think that's awesome. Very well put. What's the hardest workout you've ever done?
Ooh, I've been thinking about this one too. So I thought that the hardest thing I'd ever done was outside of the Crucible, in boot camp, the 54 or 52 hour evolution that we had to go through at the end. So I thought that was tough, but then I started thinking about it. Maybe the half marathon I ran back in 2011 was pretty tough, especially since I ran it on a Sunday. Then the very next day I was sitting in a classroom all day long. It was like a train the trainer sort of course. And I had to get up at the very, towards the end of the day to do my portion, and I could barely walk to get up there. And then I was quickly reminded of a Meet Yourself Saturday workout, the 25-minute walking lunge test. And I remember like a couple of days afterwards, just realizing, I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like my legs have just been ripped off my body and I've been beaten with them. In fact, one of my neighbors who is a big CrossFit guy recently pointed out, he's like, hey man, what were you doing out there? Was it walking lunges? I'm like, yes. And he goes, and were you wearing a vest? Yes, I was. Because, and you did it how many times? I said twice. He was like, yeah, I wouldn't do that. So
that's awesome.
I think that was probably the toughest one I've done.
High volume lunges always wrecks you. Always wrecks the legs, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, in your opinion, what's
probably a tough one?
What's the best activity for building mental toughness?
This is another one I've been pondering. I think it's just really just forcing yourself to do it, right? I talked earlier about, I get up in the morning and I do my workouts, and it took me a little while of doing it to get used to it, but just doing it over and over again, it's like, it's part of your schedule. Even at 5 a.m. when my furry alarm clock, which is, our young puppy, comes over and starts licking my face because she's so used to me getting up at 5 and letting them out and everything. So it's like, okay, I've got to get up. But once you get into that routine, it's like, it's automatic. It's like, okay, I get up, the dogs go out, I get my water, I bring the dogs in, I get my shoes, and I'm downstairs in the gym. And it's just like that. And even on the days that I don't want to do it, my dog's right there waking me up, and it's like, well, I got to do it anyhow. I'm already up. Let's do this. So,
dude, you've trained your dog as the ultimate accountability partner.
Yeah.
She is. And it's, it kind of backfires, especially like on days that I have to travel. And I leave like the night before, for an early client meeting. And my wife calls me later on the day and she's like, yeah, your dog woke me up at 5 a.m. Thanks a lot.
Someone's got to work out in this house.
Exactly. I'm like, well, did you work out? She's like, no, I went back to bed.
That's crazy. Dogs are crazy when it comes to a routine sometimes, but that would be hard to pass up.
Yeah, yes. I was gonna ask you, like, what do you do if the dog doesn't come? But it sounds like that happens like no matter what, even when you're not there.
Yeah, even when I'm not there. And then there's some mornings that she wants to do it even earlier. So this morning she decided to wake me up at 4 a.m.
Oh, that's so
fun. Rude.
Yes. And I couldn't get her to go back to bed. So
my kids do that sometimes. Like, hey, you're up 2 hours before I would normally wake up.
It's funny how that works out.
Yeah.
Now, if you could only have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
So many options. And, and I was thinking about that as well, because it's like, if I could have one thing, I would say probably a phone, to where I could at least figure out some sort of workout. And I know that that's been used. I know kettlebells have been used. So, I think ultimately I would just say, a phone, because it's just so versatile. The different things we can do with it, whether if it's, just going out and running intervals and using a stopwatch on it, or looking up programming.
I guess that's a creative answer.
Well, I like to, believe that, it's the old adage from the Marines, right? We adapt, we improvise, we overcome. So if I'm in some sort of situation where it's just me out there in the middle of nowhere, I guess as long as I have a battery, I'm ready to rock and roll.
And so if you could add something to your gym, which I think I know what you might need coming up, what would it be?
Well, if you're going to say crossover symmetry, that is probably on the list. But no, I'm really weighing the options right now of, I think my treadmill's starting to get a little worn out. And so I've really been eyeballing the True Form treadmills. And I know there's been a couple other members that have talked about it. And
do it.
The only thing I'm close to doing it. And with Rogue 20 minutes away from me, I can easily go and pick it up. But I want to go and test it out first and make sure that it's something that I'm going to like. But yeah, especially with this whole COVID thing, and my wife was using the treadmill and she's like, your treadmill's horrible. I'm like, you know what? We paid $60 for it and it works.
I want more people to get one so I can have the courage to do it.
Yeah, they're very, I've watched multiple YouTube videos on them and everything else. And it's just one of those things of, while the price is up there, it seems like it's the most practical when it comes down to a purchase like that. Or I could just go out and just run, but we've got plenty of running trails around here.
I'd say for what I was thinking of, crossover symmetry would be fantastic for your recovery, and it'll keep you rehabbing and prehabbing it for a long time. But a bike, some kind of bike, cycling to do that for conditioning while you're laid up. Yeah,
that would probably be a good one too. I hadn't really given that one much thought. I could try to ride, I do have a regular bike. I could try to ride that one-handed, but it may not be too good.
See, a spin bike, you can't fall.
Exactly. So maybe I'll keep an eye out for a spin bike and get that.
Awesome, man. Well, there are a lot of Garage Gym athletes listening to this right now. What would your best advice for them be?
Drop your ego at the door. Just do it. There's been so many times that I've come in here and I look at, whatever the workout is, and I'm like, you know what, we're just gonna do this all the way to the max. And it's been really humbling though, these last few months with this injury, that I haven't been able to do that. And it's like, why do something like an overhead press where I'm going to cause potentially more damage? Even though the doctor said he's going to fix everything once he gets in there. But it's just like, drop the ego and just do what you can do, and don't get wrapped around the axle when it comes down to what the workout is, or the actual exercise. If you have to scale it. If you have to sub it out with something else because of an injury, then sub it out. But keep at it. Just don't give up, because if you get too frustrated because your ego's in the way, then you're not doing anything to help yourself improve, whether if it's mentally or physically.
I love it, Keith. Well, I appreciate you being a Garage Gym athlete, for spending time with us today, and like I said, just for being a part of the community and being consistent with the training. And thanks for all you've shared today, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And this has been an honor. Like I said, listening to the podcast for quite some time, and actually getting to see both of you kind of in person virtually has been a great honor. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.